I don't have the money to fix my hairline.
I'm gonna buy you some headbands.
All right.
All right, Jake, go ahead.
Welcome back to another episode of Wisco Fanatics Friday Night. As always, you got Tyler and myself. We are joined by Bryant. And John is stepping in for Simon. John, welcome back.
Thank you.
Simon is busy with his moose hunting, moose riding, igloo building. I don't know what he's doing out there, but he's busy with the moose.
If he told you, he'd have to kill you. So we come up with stories.
Yep. We just say it's something with a moose and we don't ask questions.
That's fair.
He did send us a picture of a moose the other day, and he's like, "Should I ride it?" I'm like, "Yes." If opportunity knocks, you answer the door.
Yeah, man. I told him, I said, if you don't ride the moose, you're fired. And now John's here, so you guys.
Those things are pretty dangerous, though.
Yeah, they're huge. You see the size of their heads? Yeah. I would never go near one of those. But we had a rough game last night, but those were to be expected this year. A lot of downs this year with this Green Bay Packers team. Definitely some positives to take away from it. That's what we do best on this show. So we will go over the positives, go over the negatives, what to improve. But as for now, I'm going to start the show by asking Bryant, how you doing, buddy? How's your day?
Doing pretty good. How you doing? It was a rough one, but I said kind of, we gave it a little push in the second half, but I said I wanted to see positives in the second half, and we've seen those. So, and anyone, like we said, they would be kidding themselves if they didn't think we'd go through this. We're the youngest team in the NFL. These things are going to happen.
Right. My description of the game last night is I'm not upset anymore. But while watching that, I felt like I was in a bar fight and I was not able to use my arms to fight back. That's what I felt like watching that game.
I'm more upset with the coaching, to be honest, and we can get into that more. But
we're going to get into it. I promise you that. John, how you doing, buddy? Long time no talk.
Man, tired. Watched the game last night, right? And then today I did a rewatch, did something on my channel. It started out like with anger. It's almost like I'm going through the 5 stages. Because it started with anger, like, what are you doing? And then today I've been bargaining with myself all day, like, all right, it's not so bad. They're going to recover. And now it's just like, screw it, I'm tired. I got to keep talking about this game. And it's been 25 hours since it kicked off. It's one of those, just an exhausting game to analyze, to talk about, to even think about. I mean, like, obviously it's good we're breaking it down tonight, but it is already time to just close the door on this, move on, and figure out what to fix.
So before we start talking about things specifically, I want to personally take this opportunity to blame Lil Wayne for running out with
every time he's there, we lose.
He ran out with Colorado last week on Saturday, and they got their asses kicked, and then he ran out with the Packers. So I blame Lil Wayne, nothing else.
Fair.
Literally, single-handedly lost because of Lil Wayne.
I'm going to blame his shoes. Those shoes are horrible. He looked like he was wearing tissue boxes on his feet. What was that?
Also want to blame the gold package holders. Stop selling your tickets, dude. Go to the game if you're going to go to the game.
Yeah.
Seriously, and don't sell it to Lions fans. You
pathetic.
Well, I mean, but that's part of the problem, because if you just post it on Ticketmaster now, like, you don't know who's buying it.
Yeah,
it used to be like, it used to be an actual exchange, but now that the NFL got rid of that, like, it's fair game.
Yep.
It's crappy all the way around.
Well, they shouldn't whine and cry for their season tickets just to turn around and sell them. Like, well, the 147,000 people on the waiting list.
Yeah.
Somebody made a good point that if you are selling more games than you're going to, you should lose your season tickets.
I agree with that. Actually.
There are teams that do that. Like, Denver's got a big log jam for their season ticket wait list. And I think it was like 3-4 years ago, they implemented rules that said, like, they were going to begin tracking selling. And I don't remember the exact rules. I'd have to go look into it. But, like, other teams have done stuff like that to say, if you're not actually coming to at least most of the games, we're going to pass you over, move right on down the list.
All right. Well, they should do that, because then my daughter's name will move up the list. Because I put my daughter on there the day she was born. I went right on there, right from the hospital, right before the Bucs game, put her name on there. And as soon as that goes to winter, it'll really be Jake's.
You need to ask her when she's like 16, hey, have you ever thought about any kids' names, and then get their kid, and then maybe you'll have a chance for them to get tickets.
Yeah, right. Well, apparently it's like a 30-year wait, so I'll be an old grandpa by then.
I mean, club level is only like 10 years, so if you really want to fork out for the tickets,
I'm just going to keep grinding until I get media credentials.
Well, whichever one happens first, Tyler.
We can share. We can all go in on club tickets and take turns going.
Just buy one.
Right.
Yeah.
All righty. So we're going to start with some stars of the game. Yes, even though the Packers lost by 14 points, there were still stars of this game. So Bryant is going to go first. Bryant, kind of awkward, but we're going to have games like this. So Bryant, who's our first star?
So pretty indicative of the game, though. But our first star is Whelan. Like anytime you have you punt 5 times, and it's an average of 51.8 yards per punt. That's pretty good. There's a few times he boomed us out of a deep end and I'll get more into it with special teams, don't worry. But he kind of flipped the field for us a little bit. Unfortunately, we weren't able to capitalize.
Yeah. I was surprised when I saw that he had an average of almost 52 yards. I was like, damn, that's good stuff. Jake has our second star.
And I know everybody's going to be thinking about one specific play, which is absolutely ridiculous when he played a very large amount of plays. But our second star is Quay Walker. The guy had 19 tackles, 10 solo, 9 assists, including a tackle for loss. Looked like one of 2, maybe 3 players on the defense that wanted to actually hit somebody last night. So leave it what it may. I'm gonna leave it kind of open ended because there's gonna be a lot of opinions and discussion about Quay. I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll talk about it in special teams again.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll wait until we get to the tackling part because I know John's gonna have some good stuff for that. But John has our third star.
Yeah, I got to go with Romeo Doubs. I mean, like the pass game wasn't exactly terrific last night, but Doubs was. I mean, 9 catches on 13 targets, 95 yards. 4 of his catches went for first downs and 0 drops. I mean, at least according to PFF, he has yet to have a drop this season. So Romeo Doubs has become the ultra reliable receiver that Love has needed. So
bodes well for my bold prediction that he'd be third in the NFC North in receptions after Jefferson and St. Brown.
Yeah, I do want to say something on Romeo Doubs. He was the one person I kind of seen, and he's so reserved and he's very quiet when he talks to media and stuff. Yeah. But he's so different on the field, and I think to his team, he was the one pumping him up, like, "Hey, let's go, let's get on this, let's get going." The one couple times I've seen him on the screen, so just he's become a huge. Like I can make an argument he's our number 1.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you could make
that argument. Christian does over the next handful of games, but.
So I got to pick the underrated performer this week. I went with the rookie defensive lineman. So overall, our defensive line had a kind of a tough go against the Lions offensive line, but I'm seeing growth, which is like really the thing that I want to look for most in 2023 is I want to see growth from all the young players. It's going to be brought up probably 34 times during this show that the Packers are a young team. So I'm going to start by saying it once. The young guys, what I'm looking for is for them to grow week to week so that we can build a foundation and then see what we need to fill in 2024's draft, so on and so forth. So Carl Brooks, 2 tackles, a sack, and a pass defense. Colby Wooden had 4 tackles, and Lucas Van Ness had a tackle. With their play diagnosis, Lucas Van Ness looks like one of our better run stoppers and just pass rush. I'm pretty happy with these 3 guys. And maybe Brenton Cox can find a way to work himself into this mix as well. So I went with the rookie defensive lineman. Oh, Greg was like, I'm going to show up when I can. And he's in during the first segment. All right, so we're going to start with the offense. Bryant, how are the wide receivers developing?
It's kind of more of the same, really. I was surprised that Wicks had such a quiet night. He had like 33 snaps or something like that. He didn't see the ball. Jaden Reed, it's like he's gonna have 3 or 4 receptions for 50 yards a game. The one thing I've noticed this game, and it happened last game too, but this happened on the punt. He keeps picking his head up and looking downfield before he secures the ball. That's what happened on the goal line against the Saints, and that's what happened on that punt return that he went to go grab it. He looked up the field right before he secured the ball, and then he fumbled it. Luckily, it didn't completely bite us and totally put the game out of reach there. But I don't recall any blatant drops by him like it was like he kind of what had against the Saints. But you can argue whether or not that last second play at the I don't know if the TV broadcast is perfectly synced up with the game clock or not. Whatever, we can go back and forth with that. That was a great diving catch. I mean, that's fantastic. So But yeah, he's fine. Obviously, if we want to talk about second-year wide receivers, Dobbs continues to roll, and Watson was on a snap count, but he voiced some frustration about not being in the game later in the game. But he found the end zone, so that was nice too. So,
on the subject of voicing the concern, I think that's one of those situations where you kind of just have to protect the player from themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think they've had to do that with Rashawn Gary, so I don't think that's anything they're going to have any trouble holding the backbone on. But just something they're going to – it's one of those things like last week when we talked about – or I shouldn't even say last week because it was Tuesday when we recapped the Saints game. But having guys available through the rest of the season is more important than this Thursday night game. And it's going to be that way until we get to like week 7, 8. Then it's going to be like, okay, we need to start stacking wins together. The rest of the season is a shorter amount of time now. But right now we're in week 4.
Well, and if I can just add something too, Matt LaFleur in his press conference today, he acknowledged that, yes, they were on a strict snap count, but the plan is for Monday, they're very hopeful to get them back in full, both Jones and Watson.
He said they're hopeful Stokes will.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so looking at the rookie tight ends, this was kind of hard this week because Luke Musgrave left with a concussion. Having the mini bye going from Thursday night game to a Monday night game, I think he should be able to get cleared by next Monday. And then Tucker Kraft, I think he actually did a nice job filling in for Luke Musgrave, and I think he might have earned himself some more snaps. He caught both of the targets that were to him. He did kind of bobble the second one, but for a guy who's basically been playing 13% or less of the snaps through the first 3 weeks, I think Tucker Kraft did a pretty admirable job filling in after Luke Musgrave got a concussion.
You seen him get embarrassed on like one of the blocks, but I don't think that was on him. I think that was on the scheme or the play.
And he didn't even have time to react.
He didn't have time to react. So,
yeah. As far as the passing game distribution, this actually might be, like, as far as the first 4 games go, one of the highlights of the season so far. We don't have an Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams hyper-focus thing going on. Jordan Love is spreading the ball everywhere. He's spreading it not only to the players, but also to the downs and distances. Like, he's throwing short, medium, intermediate, and deep balls. He's throwing them all. Robert said, interesting analysis, guys. Cheers from Singapore, the other side of the globe, having breakfast at the moment. Go Pack. Oh, that is awesome. We seriously love seeing that when people from far away are commenting on stuff. We actually love that. That's really cool.
You know how awkward it would be to watch the Packers while eating pancakes?
Dude, when I was in Korea for a year, I'd have to get up at 2:30 or 2 in the morning. So I'd get up at 2 in the morning, watch the game, fall asleep at 5 in the morning, wake back up at 6 in the morning for PT.
Oh my gosh!
But that was the year that Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbone. So towards the end of the year, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. So
yeah, he's like, hey, Robert said, I do that all the time.
Yeah, I had a guy.
Pancakes for the goat.
I had a guy at my watch party last night who was watching from France, and he said it was about 3:30 in the morning there.
That's awesome.
Good for you, dude.
That's awesome.
That sounds great.
That's awesome. Okay, so 4 games in, the first game with Christian Watson, and Jordan Love is still spreading the ball very well. Romeo Doubs did have 13 targets, but he caught 9 of them. Yeah. So it's not like he's just throwing his way because he sees that he's wearing number 87, and that's the guy he's throwing to. So it's not like Love was trying to throw into double and triple coverage to find Romeo Doubs. With them, and I'm going to talk about this when we get into some later stuff with Jordan Love's development, but I think with more chemistry, Jordan Love and Romeo Doubs could be a great pairing for a long time. As far as the spread of the distribution of targets, 10 different players were targeted, 8 different players had receptions. So passing game distribution, I think so far has been just fantastic. So, John, you're filling in for Simon this week, and you have the unfortunate task of not only covering the defensive line, but also the offensive line. So how did the offensive line do last night?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I know this is a very positive show, but y'all are jerks. Because you bring me on for 1 week, and you give me offensive, defensive lines and tackling after this game. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
I will now you know why we talk about Simon the way we do.
Jeez. All right. So, I mean, here's the deal. we can keep the analysis even fairly brief because, I mean, like you could sum it up with just one singular word. Protection was bad. I mean, in just every possible stretch. And I don't want to come off as overly negative, but this is truly a game where the Green Bay Packers appeared lost in terms of blocking, both with the pass and the run. They gave up 29 pressures to the line, or at least the Lions registered 29 pressures, which was their season high. Like Jake was mentioning in the pre-show, there was even Love. There's one stat out there about Love getting pressure in almost 50% of his dropbacks. It just absurdly good day for the Lions pass rush, which of course results in a very, very bad day for the Packers offensive line. Mm-hmm. There's even one play, Andy Herman from the Pack-A-Day podcast, he put it out on Twitter. There's one play in particular that he shared a clip of where the Packers kept back 8 in protection, 5 O-linemen and 3 more. The Lions only rushed 4. The Lions still got home for a sack.
You know how many times I noticed that?
Huh?
It's insane. How many times we had like 6 on 4 and they're still getting home?
And that's the thing is like there's bad O-line play or there's just not being as good as who's in front of you. And then there's that, which I've been trying all day to figure out, like, how can that even physically possibly happen? I mean, is it just a deficiency that the defensive linemen are weaving through multiple dudes on the way to Love? Like, no. It's just almost every single time that happened in the game, the pockets immediately condensed down, whether it was 3 guys rushing for the Lions, 4, whether the Lions blitzed, which they barely had to do. It just didn't seem to matter. And I mean, we can talk about injuries. Obviously, there's all the news of David Bakhtiari now. Elton Jenkins was out. Zach Tom absolutely did not look like himself last night. I mean, he led the offensive line in terms of pressures allowed with 6 pressures allowed. Beyond that, the remaining 4 on the line, Rasheed Walker had 4, Newman had 5, John Runyon Jr. had 5, and then Josh Myers was actually the best performer of the batch with 2. I mean, so it was just totally across all 5. It was an incredibly negative performance. In the run game, there was no real push forward. In the pass game, they were constantly backpedaling. I mean, there's even another clip out there of Royce Newman, like as soon as the ball being snapped, Love takes it in shotgun, gets to the back of his drop back, and Newman doesn't get any type of block on the defender at all. He winds up backpedaling straight up into Love, who's dropping back out of shotgun. Yeah. That kind of push from Detroit's interior, it just can't happen. And like what's really, really upsetting is it's not like this kind of performance came against the 85 Bears or like the Purple People Eaters. Like the Lions have, by most metrics, a fairly average pass rush. Like Aiden Hutchinson, he's great. The rest of their guys are not exactly known as menaces when it comes to the pass rush. Like Kaminsky, one of their defensive linemen, Peter Bukowski put out on Twitter that even after last night's game, like Kaminsky made a bunch of highlight plays. Even after last night's game, he's now 93rd ranked pass rusher for defensive linemen in the NFL. The worst one that the Packers have is 63rd.
Oh my God.
Like, so the Lions, like with guys that by all accounts in terms of pass rush are substantially worse than the Packers' worst guy, still blew right through what up until this game was the Packers' offensive line, which was widely considered, even without Bakhtiari and Jenkins, was widely considered still as one of the best pass blocking units in the NFL. And they failed. I mean, there's just no way about it. I can't find a positive spin to put on this even. Like, no, it's a failure. This was rough. And there's a lot of work to be done and perhaps some personnel changes to really find its way again. Maybe this opens the door to that.
If they don't think that Sean Ryan can perform better than Newman, then they need to pick up the phone and find an interior offensive lineman.
Well, and that's the thing. See, like at this point, right? And this isn't even a knock on Royce. It's just a fact. Royce Newman gave up 5 pressures last night, right? And in the run game, he wasn't exactly spectacular. So if you swap out Royce Newman for Sean Ryan, what do you honestly have to lose at this point? The fact that Sean Ryan's going to get bowled over into J-Love? Well, Newman's already doing that. Ryan has longer to go on his contract, had a higher draft pedigree than Newman. Yes, his rookie year was terrible, But if you play Sean Rhyan and he actually plays above expectation, you may have fallen your way into a potentially long-term starter versus Newman, which I think we all can acknowledge is probably his career is running its course in Green Bay.
Guy.
I'm shocked he even made the roster, dude.
There's a play that I watched him completely look like he was on skates. It could push, probably the one you referred to, just push right into Jordan Love within a second.
Yeah, and he's backpedaling the whole time.
Yeah,
it's just baffling. I just don't understand.
At that point, you should just fall down into like doggy position and trip the guy. I don't like. What do you just do something?
It's more effective than just backing all the way up into Love, who's a solid 8 to 12 yards behind you. Right. I like to watch a particular position and say, well, the easy improvements here are do this and this, or just do that. Watching this performance, it is incredibly difficult to say, given what was put on tape last night, well, here's the solution. Do this or play this differently and it'll work better. Like, no, they just straight up everything they tried got beat. And they did it by a subpar unit, which is perhaps the worst thing about it.
Yeah.
So on the offensive line, if there is a positive spin that you want to put on it, what I would say is that it just shows that there's a massive opportunity for improvement. And there's really only one way to go, and that's up. But what I'll say on the subject of maybe using Sean Rhyan, the only thing that I would say that justifies having Royce Newman in the game is that the Packers run a short week. Now going from Thursday to Monday and you have 10 days before your next game, I think that's enough time to have Sean Rhyan ready to play on Monday.
Well, and I think that's totally fair. I hadn't really considered the short week, to be honest, but there are options even besides Sean Rhyan. I mean,
Caleb Jones, maybe.
Matt LaFleur is always, LaFleur is always preaching best five.
Yeah.
And yet, I know Yash didn't have the best camp, but we're rolling out Royce Newman instead of Yash, which just, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So if we want to get best five, we know Zach Tom can play the interior. If Elton's not ready yet, maybe we have to kick Tom to the interior and let Yash play. It's just clear that if they roll out with that five again without doing something drastically different, these results could repeat themselves. And
they're facing Max Crosby the next game they play.
Yeah.
Matt LaFleur,
incredibly concerning.
Yeah. Matt LaFleur did say today that everything is kind of open relating to the offensive line. So I think they'll probably spend this weekend looking at what they're going to do with that.
You said exactly what I was going to say too, is like, was there any thought of putting Tom on the inside and putting Yash out there? Something's got to change. And I feel like Matt LaFleur says that a lot. Oh, everything's open to the door, or everything's open to change. And then we come the next week and it's the exact same thing.
Yeah. The only thing I can really add is it's possible. I mean, I've done a bunch of talking on my own channel about Tom has been so exemplary at tackle. To this point, personally, I haven't supported moving him. He's been one of the best pass blocking right tackles in the NFL so far. So why do you really want to screw with that? But
injuries, if you still had Jenkins and Bakhtiari on the other side, and you're okay, you have two set it and forget it guys on your offensive line, but right now, Zach Tom might be the only set it and forget it guy, and maybe Rasheed Walker, but he's made 3 starts.
Yeah,
he's a bit
up and down.
Yeah, up and down 100%.
So, right at this point, Zach Tom is maybe your only set it and forget it player on your offensive line.
Yeah. Well, and
moving him throws that into flux.
There is one player, too, that really hasn't been talked about at all, even by LaFleur to this point, who, could be coming back soon. He's at least eligible now. Would be Luke Tenuta. Tenuta, of that kind of trio of young tackles where it was like Walker, Jones, and Tenuta was the only one that actually had a little bit of interior line experience. If they can get him back soon, maybe he's the answer to kick inside. Maybe by next Monday, because they opted not to put Elton Jenkins on IR. His return's got to be kind of sort of coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he returns, in which case then Josh Myers' play is elevated as well. It should be noted, too, that on the second series of the game, John Runyon Jr. rolled his ankle, which we have since learned was a sprain, not a high ankle sprain, but still an ankle sprain. So he was not at all his typical self for the rest of the game. And paired next to Zach Tom, who wasn't himself. It's just a mess. Yeah.
All right. So, Bryant, how does that tie into the running game? Another kind of a rough spot.
Well, we had 27 rushing yards, so that was good. We were outrushed by 184 yards. Pretty disgusting. And remember what my key to the game was? Run the ball and control the clock. Well, they had the ball for almost twice as long as we did. They had the ball for 38, just shy of 38 minutes. That's disgusting.
Yeah, that was rough.
So my thing I want to talk about is I get it that Jones was on the pitch count. He didn't get a carry until we gave him 3 touchdowns. If he's on a pitch count, give him his pitch count. Use some of those early in the game to get us into a rhythm because he is our best offensive player on the field almost at all times if he's on the field, in my opinion. Romeo Dobbs, you could argue he's getting there too, but he's not on Aaron Jones' level.
Jones is far more proven.
Yes, far more proven. So if he's on a pitch count, give him the freaking ball, okay? Use it to get us into the rhythm. This is kind of like, what was it? It was I can't remember what game it was. It was the first game against the Bears or something. He's like, well, we weren't in rhythm, so we didn't give him the ball. I'm like, he is literally your rhythm maker. What do? They come out and give him the ball to start the second half. He literally pretty much does every yard on that drive and scores a touchdown, and it's full force from there. We just wipe the floor with them. Like, Aaron Jones needs to touch the ball. So if he's on a snap count, give it to him early and see how he's feeling to get into the thing. The other thing that's just eating at me, and I've talked about it now like 3 weeks in a row. So we give Aaron Jones the ball. We get to 2nd and 5. What do? We do this stupid option pitch to him on the outside. We lose 2 yards again. Against the Saints, it was -6 yards. Against the Falcons, it was -4. I'm pretty sure is what the numbers were. And then we go from, instead of 2 to 5, now we're in 3rd and 7, incomplete pass for punting. Like, give Aaron Jones the ball and let him run. Stop trying to do cute stuff with him. Get him the ball and let him make plays because that's what he does. So, and then even today, and someone asked, hey, Matt, are you done with that option play? No, I don't think so. It was a bad time to call it. I think every time he's called it this year has been a bad time to call it. So when he shows me a good time to call it, then I'll trust the play. I don't know if I'm being too harsh on that, but I just get the guy the ball.
I would say he's 0 for 3 on it so far. So I see your point, what you're getting.
Well, then on top of that,
and how many times does he have to come out and say, oh, I don't have an excuse, or we need to get Aaron Jones the ball earlier and more often? What? You literally say it weekly at this point.
Can I just chime in real quick here, Brian? I agree with everything you said so far, by the way. But the thing about the run game is it was very, very predictable when they were going to run the ball, where they were going to run the ball. He did not do a very good job of mixing up play calls, stretching them horizontally and vertically, which is something that all of these coaches try to do now. And the play that I go to is they had DeGuara, who, by the way, in my opinion, was awful last night. They always kept him in the block, and he wasn't doing shit. And then they tried to motion him and have him be the lead blocker for Jones, and Jones almost died, landing on his freaking neck. It was like, bro, is anybody going to do anything right now? Like, none of this running outside is working. Nobody's blocking in the pass. Like, I just felt like DeGuara was useless. I felt like the run plays were useless calls. They didn't do a good job mixing anything.
You know what's weird is I actually felt that DeGuara was good in the pass game.
He had some receptions.
Yeah, but they were playing soft zone at that point. Let's be honest.
And
they were kicking our ass at that point.
My thing is, if we want to try to run outside, don't do the option play. I'd much rather see you do a freaking jet sweep with Watson or Reed or Nixon. Someone that's like this thing where we have 4 people running out there and you're hoping you flip them the ball. It's just not working.
Bro, I felt the same way about Watson because you said that thing about Jones. Like, he's on a pitch count. You know Watson's on a pitch count. Use him on a jet sweep. If he only gains 1 yard, then they have to think about it at least when he's on the damn field. But my God.
If you're wasting their pitch count numbers on not giving those guys the ball, you're making a mistake.
Well, you're 6'5" and you run really fast. You're a decoy, I guess.
Decoys, but
yeah, why?
Well, and that's just what I was going to say, Tyler. I mean, Watson's presence last night was a lot more decoy than really anything else.
Dumb.
I mean, he only logged Watson was at a grand total of, I think, 20 snaps was his final total.
Yeah.
And what was his targets?
And that's something where, like, I would actually, the option play specifically, that's something I would save until Watson is healthy because he is now your best blocking wide receiver. So you're not going to get a DB that's going to knife through into the backfield. So keep that play in your pocket until you have Watson on the edge that you know you can trust him blocking. something that I would throw out there.
I mean, and I would say, like, with LaFleur's opinion on like the timing, I tend to agree with it. I mean, like, the option is a football standard. We just haven't seen it in Green Bay forever, right? Like, it is effective if done well. The problem is, like you said, Bryant, like when LaFleur calls it, it's just bad timing. Like, it's almost one of those plays that you want to pull out since you've got a mobile quarterback that can do it now. You want to pull it out when the defense is already on its heels, not when they're in attack mode.
Yeah.
And they seemingly pull it out on like 2nd and 4 or 2nd and 6, and then it gets shut down for 5, and then you're in 3rd and long. Like they're doing it at just terrible, terrible times, and I think that's what's leading to its downfall.
Greg asked the question: is it possible that it was just Murphy's Law last night? We have a good offensive line. Maybe give this unit one more try. No, I think in the interest of exploring all perspectives, I think it is possible.
Yeah,
because we've seen Rasheed Walker do a good job at left tackle. Royce Newman.
I'm okay with everyone other than Royce. Like, it's done at this point.
But I mean, John already pointed out, between Zach Tom and John Runyon, like, they didn't play 3/4 of this game at 100%. And actually, we've seen Josh Myers make a little bit of progress, not a lot, but a little bit of progress so far this season. So
he's had a pretty solid start to the year, actually.
I think it's possible that it just kind of ended up being one of those everything went right for the Lions things. But I mean, I wouldn't chalk it up to that solely, but I think that's a little bit of it possible.
I do think there's something to be said for it. I mean, it was the same starting 5 that did just fine against the Saints mostly last week.
They have a good pass rush.
Yeah, and by reputation alone, you assume the Saints pass rush is better than the Lions pass rush, and they seem to do fine against the Saints. Well, now they go against a very hungry Detroit team. John Runyon Jr.'s walking on a hobbled ankle for 80% of the game. Zach Tom does not look himself at all. Like, yeah, there were holes all over the place. And Josh Myers, like, is an above average pass blocking center, but we can say pretty confidently at this point in his career, like, he needs competent guard play next to him to be really effective.
Yeah.
And competent guard play is not Royce Newman and a hobbled John Runyon Jr. So then he was put on an island too often too. It's just fair. It was just bad all the way around, and a lot of it was bad luck.
I agree with that. Runyon will get healthy on the 10 days off. I'm hoping to have Jenkins back for that Monday nighter because we have a bye week after that. So maybe if he could, give us something, gut a game out for us, that would be huge for us, honestly.
Huge, massive.
Yeah. I mean, the Raiders are just imploding right now with all the Chandler Jones drama off the field, and there's all this stuff going on about Josh McDaniels. I mean, Max Crosby and Devontae are talking trash about the coach, talking trash about Mark Davis. Still the worst haircut in the history, by the way, but that has nothing to do with football. But it is, dude. Look at that. Like, what's going on over there? and then he looks like he. Never mind.
All right, Jake. How the red zone offense do?
The red zone offense was actually pretty decent. The first attempt came after a interception by Rudy Ford. Rudy Ford was pretty good. We were talking before the show that he actually had a pretty solid game. Also has the best Instagram profile pick of all time. So go check that out if you like Dragon Ball Z. That's my nerd quote of the day. The first drive that we had was 4 plays and 0 yards. First down, we threw a pass that was terrible to Aaron Jones, incomplete. We got sacked on 2nd down. That's inexcusable when you get field position in the red zone right away. You cannot get sacked. And from that moment on, I and my daughter, put everything on her life right now. What I'm about to say is completely honest. When I saw that sack, I got a feeling in my stomach like, these boys are coming. It felt like it felt like Hutchinson was hunting. And it felt like they were coming after us. They were not going to let us take this game from them. We were going to have to take it from them. And then after that, we threw a 9-yard pass to Dubs to make up for the loss and the sack, and we got a field goal. So, yada, yada, yada. You fast forward, we're getting our ass whooped. Everybody in Wisconsin is disgusted. 98% of the state is drunk at this point. And then we get our second opportunity in the red zone. That's really what happened. We have a 12-play 86-yard drive. So our first play in the red zone on this drive was a 4th and 9. and it was a pass from Love to Dubs that got us to the Detroit 2-yard line for a 15-yard gain. That was a great play call by LaFleur.
I feel like that's the exact same one they ran to Jaden Reed against the Saints in a similar situation.
It's pretty close.
R2 to flip it.
Yep. They just flipped the play. That's exactly what it was too. Except they just ran it to Dubs, who was cooking last night. We got the 1st and goal from the 2-yard line. We gave it to A.J. Dillon, tried to power it in. He got one tough yard. That was a tough 3 feet. So I give him credit for that one. And then 2nd and goal from the 1. Love finds Christian Watson wide open for his first touchdown. And we ran it. It was a nice play call. I was a little nervous watching the replay because Watson bobbled a little bit. I was like, you SOB. That continued my feelings of whatever's going to go wrong in this game is going to go wrong in this game. Love finds Reed. Very good. That was a freaking laser, by the way, that he threw to Reed.
That was nice.
For the 2-pointer. So then we get our 3rd opportunity. The play that maybe shouldn't have happened, the controversial play that maybe shouldn't have happened. Love to Reed for 44 yards. At the end of the 3rd quarter, set us up in the red zone. That had 52.6, if I remember correctly, of air yards. 52.6 air yards.
I saw somebody on Facebook today say that Love's deep ball was a problem last night. I'm like, what fucking game were you watching?
Bro, that was a bucket, dude.
You could maybe say he was looking too deep too often with the pressure. I'll give you that. But
his actual deep throws weren't a problem last night.
Yeah, when he actually threw it, it wasn't a problem.
Right. So that set us up with 1st and goal from the 9. Love tried to go back to Jaden Reed. It was incomplete. And then 2nd and goal from the 9-yard line. Love untouched on his way to the end zone. That was a nice play call as well.
I think that was my favorite play of the game, actually.
We will, Tyler and I will have to watch the game together again this week and break down some plays, but I guarantee you that Jordan Love play is going to be in there. We had a failed 2-point attempt on this one, but I thought the red zone offense, I think honestly they've been a little bit more creative this year. The ability to use the quarterback's feet has definitely been something that's opened up the playbook a lot. So I think that they've been good in the red zone. Can't really complain. That's probably the one thing in this game that you can't complain about is the red zone offense. Outside of the sack they took on the 2nd play, I thought they were really, really good.
You just got to get there more often.
Yeah. Came away with points every time. So
yeah.
Okay, so 3rd down offense. I feel like there's some things here contextually, and then I think there are actually a little bit of redeeming qualities. So the Packers were 3 for 11. That's 27% on 3rd downs. That's well below my goal of 40% that I set for the team so that they can be in the top half of the league. That's really where I'm looking for the Packers to be, 40%, top half. They were 1 for 1 on 4th down, which is good. Jake mentioned that 4th and 9 pass. Second half 3rd downs, they were 3 for 6. So just like I would say pretty much everything else, it was better in the second half. So when the Packers went into halftime down 24-3, I tweeted out, like, I'm really just looking for the Packers to put good reps out. Just win the second half. Like, not that I write it off, like, that it's impossible to come back, but barring a comeback, like, I'm just looking, just win the second half. Do something you can build on for the next game. And I felt the Packers actually did that. They won the second half 17-7. So, like, I actually, as far as this game goes, like, I wasn't super mad by the end result. The first half was frustrating, but I do actually feel like the Packers did fairly well in the second half at a lot of things. So being 3 of 6 on 3rd downs in the second half, 50%, that I was happy with. So the other thing, this is tough. So Jake is going to talk about 3rd down defense in a little bit, and he's going to tell you what the Lions' average 3rd down distance was. The Packers' 3rd down average distance was 10.2 yards.
Oh my!
Yeah, it was literally more than an average down in distance.
I literally don't even know what to, dude. I saw a tweet last night that wanted to make me throw up. But continue your talking. I'll talk about it in coaching. So I think it has a little bit to do with that.
Okay. Bryant, how about special teams?
I might throw up in my mouth. It's the 2nd week in a row, just atrocious. Like, that's the best way to – you guys seen my notes. I won't share all of those, but I thought I don't know if Rich Bisaccia has like a control over the special teams or if he just tells them to go out there and do whatever they want to do. The penalties are disgusting. I think we had 4 accepted penalties last night, and they were all on special teams. So
Bro, he's the highest paid special teams coach in the NFL.
Yeah. And also, talking about Nixon, I'm not going to put it all on him. Nixon is explosive, but he is hurting us at this point. And I wrote down the numbers, and I'll share them with you, okay? This unit is not disciplined enough right now for him to be taking the ball out of the end zone 6-7 yards deep. And you know how we know that? People were applauding when he didn't catch the ball and run it out.
Yeah.
So we started I'm gonna go over the 5 returns he had. Each time, just for context, each time he took it out, we started less than the 25-yard line. So the first time he took it out to the 20. The second time he took it out to 21. Third time he took it out, 10-yard penalty. We started at our 10-yard line, immediate interception. The fourth time he took it out, a decent return, but it was a holding. So we started at our 14. The fifth time he took it out, he got it to 21st. So every return that he took out started less than 25 and cost us 39 yards of field position. If you took from 39 from the 25-yard line, you're in field goal position. So he costed us a field goal position worth of yards last night by taking the ball out of the end zone.
That's why I said, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I said, you should, if he's in the front half of the end zone, take it out. If you're in the back half of the end zone, stay in the end zone. So
it's a couple weeks in a row now, and it's just been bad. Like, the only times we started at the 25-yard line were the couple touchbacks we took. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is on special teams is obviously that big play that completely deflated any comeback chance, right? As soon as we got that penalty, we all went to break we went to that commercial feeling like, okay, man, we got 9 minutes to score 2 touchdowns. Let's get this done. Come back, and there's a freaking, after the damn special teams units have gotten on the field, the kickoff teams, there's a penalty. Mm-hmm. So, and we can blame Quay, but when Matt LaFleur says in his post-game press conference that the players need to understand the rules and know them, and that's on coaching, I believe him. I'm not saying that Quay didn't know that rule, but I have a feeling they glanced over it for 30 seconds one time and just assumed that everyone understood. And you can see when they cut to Quay or Matt LaFleur talking to Quay, I don't know if he lip read a little bit, but I could see what he said. He said this cannot happen again, as I'm almost positive what he said. But something tells me that Rich Bisaccia or whoever did not inform him, like, hey, we cannot do this. So that's on coaching.
John, I don't know if you saw it. I don't know. I didn't see I wanted to see the goal line. So I wanted to see was he 3 yards away when he walked and jumped over him? Or was he
had a running start?
Yeah. That's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know how far away from the line of scrimmage he was. It was a yard and a half, and they were really calling him over a foot and a half, or if he was actually 3 yards away.
No, he knew what he was doing.
Okay.
Yeah,
he knew what he was doing.
For sure. And that's what made it a penalty was the running start.
Okay.
Is it the right call? Yeah. But is it trash that it's a freaking personal foul?
Yeah, the fact that it's an unsportsmanlike conduct and that it's in the same group of penalties as late hits, roughing the passers, and intentional face masks, that's kind of weird.
Come on. Yeah. I don't agree with that. But at the same time, I mean, anything that they're going to call, however you want to classify that penalty, it's going to result in the offense getting a redo. Any special teams penalty on a field goal kick like that, almost always, per every other rule, is going to result
anywhere outside the 10, 15-yard line. They're probably still taking the points, but inside the 10.
Oh, yeah.
That's also an issue because you don't want them stepping on that. That long snapper has his head tucked down between his legs, just snapping the ball. But I think several years ago, the rules is you can do it, but you can't make contact with them. And now they changed it to where you can't get the run up.
Yep. Yeah. And that's my understanding too. It used to just be that you couldn't use the guy's back as a springboard.
Right.
Yep. And then that's still definitely a penalty. But now they've added even if you clear it, there's still too much injury risk. So we're going to ban that too.
With metal cleats, I understand it.
And that's why they kind of stipulated the whole, they didn't want to get into guys on the line just accidentally toppling over and then that being able to be called. That's why they added in the clause of there has to be a running start. And Brian, I'm in 100% agreement. That comes down to coaching. Rich Bisaccia, you're the special teams coordinator. Your main job is to make sure all of your dudes know the rules of special teams because they're very nuanced, inside and out. And then they just didn't. That falls on coaching.
I think it's 8 penalties in the last 2 games on special teams.
Way too many.
Can I add in that, again, he is the highest paid special teams coach? Can we maybe like not have this become a goddamn problem? People are complaining about Joe Barry every week. Nobody's saying anything about Bisaccia.
There's no way we're not the worst special teams unit as far as penalties in the NFL right now.
Maybe part of his salary is because he's also the assistant head coach.
Yeah, he's the associate coach.
Just
Oh, is he doing his job there? Because we sure looked ready to play last night. I'm sorry, I was pissed at the coaching all night last night. It was god awful.
Oh, I said during the recap of the Saints game, I hope that we're able to come down from that high of winning that game and be prepared for Thursday night. I don't think we were at all.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say this as devil's advocate: the players play a part in that too. And that is a factor where having the youngest team in the NFL is a disadvantage.
Very much so. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to use the next, the defense as the jumping point with Troy's question. Troy asked, what are your opinions on our secondary play? For years now, we've let QBs and running backs willingly run for huge gains. Is our secondary that worrisome, or is it poor defensive line and linebacker play? So John actually has all three of those topics, but start with the secondary first, and then Jake will talk about the rushing defense before we continue on. So, like John, go ahead and talk about the secondary.
Honestly, it wasn't like out of all of the low points in the game, the secondary wasn't amongst the lowest, probably just because attention was so heavily placed elsewhere. But the truth is, I mean, Jared Goff passing against them was 19 of 28, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Now, we did see the very early game interception that came from Rudy Ford, of which Ford did have one of his better games of the season. Completely, absolutely. But I mean, really, like, this is a secondary unit that yesterday forced no incompletions on Goff, according to PFF. Like, all 9 of his incompletions were their own doing. It said that there was 0 forced, at least from what I saw.
Did one to Carl Brooks for his past defense for knocking one down at the line of scrimmage?
It didn't give it to him, at least.
So I blame that on Goff for throwing that?
Could be.
You should give credit to Carl Brooks for making that play.
PFF is really weird. That's why I said I'm very skeptical of their grades. So,
I understand that. I like their subsection grades a lot better than their overall grades.
Yeah, I agree with their statistics more than their grades because there's so much opinion baked into them.
Yeah. I would say when it comes to, like, there's a couple things I do want to talk about. One was the personnel change. Carrington Valentine got many of the starter snaps throughout most of the game and then was seemingly benched for Corey Ballantyne, practice squad elevation. Today, when he was asked about that, Matt LaFleur basically mentioned that was purposeful, that the plan all along was to switch to Ballantyne when the Lions were going to switch to a more run-heavy game plan. I can't say that it actually made an impact in any way, shape, or form.
They didn't really run to the outside.
What, right. I mean, plus even like Ballantyne throughout his play history, he is a moderately sure tackler, but he's not exactly one that I think of that is a run-stopping cornerback.
Yeah, he's not a thumper.
Right. They must just trust him more than Valentine. My personal opinion is I wouldn't have made that change, partially because, like, you're already down by a bunch. Right. And Carrington Valentine, especially with his more aggressive man style, is more likely to come up with a field shifting play than someone like a Ballantyne. So me personally, being a little bit more of a gambler, like, I would have rather had the young rookie corner in that's going to try to make a play versus the corner that maybe I trust not to screw up, but probably is going to allow completions to get passed on him. So I mean,
like, then just the other thing is, I would just say leave Valentine in. He's the rookie, give him the experience.
Right. So I get the logic, but it's not one that I would personally prescribe to. And the other thing that I would just say is Rasul Douglas, like, dude, you got to change your spikes because this was already not his best game, but this is now 2 weeks in a row on his home field grass that Rasul Douglas has been slipping and sliding all over the place. And it's like, dude, if you're on the road, I get it. You know, you got to go in and change your spikes, whatever. You're at home. And I know that there's some like questions about like the Packers, I guess, changed part of the composition of the actual grass this offseason. They did a little bit more sand underneath than they traditionally have. But like, dude.
We've never talked this much about the playing field until 2023.
Yeah.
At home and on the road.
Like Rasul, wear your big old spikes. Get in there, like stop slipping around. Because that first touchdown around Amon-Ra St. Brown was pretty exclusively because Rasul Douglas lost his footing right where Amon-Ra was making his break. And then it was a wide open piece of cake touchdown. And that just can't continue to happen from who is supposed to be the Packers' number one corner as it stands right now. So
yeah, Packers miss Jair.
Deeply, yeah.
John, you want to pick in this question on here?
Yeah, what's up, Blake Cobbles? It's interesting how much better this team plays in the second half, especially in defense and offense in the fourth. Unsure of that's us getting locked in or teams playing not to lose.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. My personal opinion is it's actually the Packers playing how the players would prefer to play. Like that's my take.
Let's go. Like
exactly.
About it, we played very poorly in the Atlanta second half because we had the lead, and I feel like we took this has been a thing. Matt LaFleur will say all gas, no brake, but anytime we get a lead, I feel like there's a little bit of brake going on. And then these last two games we've been behind, they get into hurry up, and Jordan Love and the offense gets into a rhythm. Like if they need to open the damn game with hurry up, do it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. Because Jordan Love, like throughout training camp, like in training camp, we were talking about this on our show. Jordan Love was a slow starter. The very first camp practice, he was a slow starter. Every other camp practice, when did you start hearing about Love? He started getting into a rhythm when they did the 2-minute drill, which is most of the way through practice. Preseason games, they kept him in for 2-3 drives because the first one always sucked and he had to get into a rhythm. And now we're seeing it in the regular season. The first half almost always sucks. But when does he like turn it on? When he stops thinking so freaking much and runs up to the line, does no huddle. And this isn't completely like out of bounds. It's not unexpected for a young quarterback. They just have to hand him the keys and say, go run, young pup. Like, and get no huddle going and get the guys into a rhythm. I don't understand Matt LaFleur's insistence on these are the 15 scripted plays we're going to start the game with. We're going to take our time with it. We're going to be in control, and we're going to set up the defense for what we want to do later.
And not a single one of them will beat to Aaron Jones.
And on 2nd and 6, we're running an option play.
Right.
I think that ties in with a lot of the comments that Matt LaFleur made, not only in the preseason, but so far during the regular season, is telling Jordan Love to trust his instincts. Put him in situations where he doesn't have time to think about it.
Well, and
force him to use his instincts.
And to my opinion, like that is spot on, but I'm going to turn that right back on LaFleur and say, then trust them to trust their instincts,
right,
and let them go play and quickly. Because right now, the beginning of the game always looks so heavily orchestrated, and then it fails because it isn't
rigid.
It isn't the young kids just going and playing, and that's what this team should be.
It's like robotic the first 15 plays.
Yeah, it's robotic because it's scripted, it's confined, it's rigid, and that's not the way these kids want to go play.
Right?
Like they have to.
That's not a way you do a rebuild either.
Right. You have to embrace the youth that they have. Like they are faster than almost any defense they're going to come against. They're more athletic. Their linemen, even as crap as they were last night, are very athletic offensive linemen who want to space out and zone pass pro. So why don't we actually embrace that, get those guys moving and push down the field as opposed to this striving for perfection orchestration over 15 plays when we're already down 17-0.
Yeah. I mean, even the Bears game, the Bears game, that was 10-6 at halftime.
I
get one of the second half touchdowns was from the defense, but that's still 21 points in the second half of that game.
Yeah. I don't understand it at this point. It almost feels like it's that old adage, like they're trying to be perfect and it's in spite of being good. Like stop trying so hard to do this orchestrated plan and just go out and play.
I'm just thinking about this out loud as you're talking about it. And a little bit of it, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. This is just off the top of my head. I didn't even do no research. It almost feels like it's LaFleur's pride because he had Rodgers, had all those 13-win seasons. And I think a little bit of it is he wants to prove that he wasn't just winning those games because of Rodgers, that he's actually the offensive genius, and he's the one that got the receivers open. This is just me spitballing. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that's what it is, but it almost feels like that a little bit. Like if Rodgers won 2 MVPs with me, oh, so if I can get Jordan Love to throw all these touchdowns and I can get Aaron Jones open for wide open plays, like then people are still going to say that I'm an offensive mastermind and all this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Well, like I get what you're saying, but I think like throwing out last night, like let's just talk first 3 weeks. Yeah. Matt LaFleur has gotten a ton of compliments through their 2-1 start for like orchestrating this brilliant, complex, throwing out the kitchen sink style offense. Like JT O'Sullivan for the quarterback school has talked about that. Darren Orlovsky, like a bunch of national pundits have talked about how creative LaFleur has been through this point.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and
what would make him look brilliant, in my opinion, is actually like tailoring it to what the guys have got to do.
And you know what? Me and Tyler and I sound like a freaking meathead. Tyler and I, we've been giving a lot of compliments to LaFleur. We've been watching the games together, breaking them down. We've been giving a lot of compliments to a lot of play calling that LaFleur has done. And like we said a million times, this is going to be probably the 15th time we said it already. They're a young team, right? So they're gonna make mistakes. Love's going to be a little bit late on reads, but I don't know. I just feel that maybe the sky's falling in my head yet from last night.
It's really good. Like still, like let's put it in context. If honestly everyone said, hey, we'll be 2-2 after 4 games, I think most of us would be like, oh, sign me up for that, because that means we're competing as a young team. And stuff like that. If you look at Jordan Love's, I think his first interception got tipped. The second one, you can clearly see the breakdown between him and Dobbs. Whether that was on Love or on Dobbs. I think Malafort, there was a window there and he sees what Love's seen, but he's going to look at a tape. But I kind of see what Dobbs seen too. Like, hey, if I turn around, I'm behind these guys and I'm open in the end zone as well. It just so happened that's exactly when Love pulled the trigger on it.
Yeah.
So you can't do much.
I have that in my notes to talk about that play when we talk about Jordan Love later, because I'm actually not mad at that interception at all.
But overall, I like the fact that they continue to fight. So, but I got to jump off, gentlemen. I kind of talked to you about that. I got some family things going on. Hey, thanks for coming on, and I'll see you guys later.
All right, take care, man. Hope everything works out.
Take care. All right, so Greg said if I had to choose only 3 Packer podcasts to watch, this would be one of the 3. He's commenting that from John, so I'm assuming he's talking about John, but hopefully you'll
all of us
like us too.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. Thanks, man.
I like you too, Greg.
Let's go Fanatics, by the way. Like Cobbles again said, I think it's closer to trying so hard to protect Love that he's handcuffing him, but make no mistake, Jordan didn't see 4 different first down chances and threw into coverage, especially in the first half.
Yeah, he's gonna be late. He's gonna miss reads. It's gonna happen.
And I think part of it. Okay, so let's table the Jordan Love thing. Let's get through the rest of the defense first, and we'll talk about Love. Greg said I'll spread the word here in the UP. Hey, appreciate it.
Hey.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Greg.
So Jake, go to the rushing defense.
All right. Let's rip this Band-Aid off. Let's rip this Band-Aid off together, boys. I had to rip it off on myself before. It was tough. So 43 carries, 211 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4.9 yard average. That's their totals.
They had almost as many rushes as we had plays.
Mm-hmm.
We had 53 plays. They had 43 rushes.
Yeah. Oh. So I wrote down all the rushing attempts and here it comes, Chris. So Monty obviously 32 carries, 121, 3 touchdowns. And every week now I break it down from wide left, mid right, and wide right. So going wide left, he had 11 carries, 63 yards, and a touchdown. Mid left, 4 carries, 13 yards, touchdown.
Hey.
Mid right, 7 carries, 12 yards, touchdown.
Hey,
right,
you're
good.
The thing you said last week and the week before, it's holding up.
Bro, people really don't run on us up the middle that much, to be completely honest. Wide right, 10 carries, 33 yards. So on the outsides, we're susceptible to the run. So then you get the Gibbs, 8 carries.
Though. That's 3.3. I'll take that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not terrible. 8 carries, 40 yards, 0 touchdowns for Gibbs. He had 1 carry wide left for 2 yards, 1 carry mid left for 6 yards, 3 carries mid right for 15 yards, and 3 carries for 17 yards in the wide right. So not a crazy game from Gibbs. They don't give Gibbs the ball enough, in my opinion.
Well, it's week 4 of the rookie season.
Yeah, I know.
And they're a team that has playoff aspirations. If they were a team that was like in the position of the Bears, where they're like, all right, our running backs that we had here aren't doing well, we're going to start giving our rookie a shit ton of carries, then I could see doing what you're saying with Gibbs.
Sure.
That's fair. So Goff had 2 carries for 10 yards. So he had 1 carry for -1 yards, and then he had 1 carry for 11 yards, and that was to the wide left. So Raymond had a carry that was 1 carry, 40 yards, and that double reverse that was to the wide right. So I totaled up everything, right? Wide left, 13 carries, 76 yards, touchdown. That's a 5.8 yard average. That's not great. That's rough. Mid left, 5 carries, 19 yards, 1 touchdown. That's a 3.8 yard average. That's livable.
That's respectable.
You can live with that. Mid right, 10 carries, 27 yards, touchdown. That's a 2.7 yard average.
Okay. That's good.
Okay.
I'll take that.
So remember the 40 yarder. It really swayed the numbers on this one. So they had 14 carries for 90 yards. That's a 6.4 yard average.
Jeez. Okay.
Yeah, 1 for 40 hurts.
Yeah. Otherwise, it would have been 13 for 50, which is
still not
great.
Yeah.
But it's not 6.5 yards the average. The 40 yarder really killed that. But that was a great play call. I'm going to say it again. I said it to John. I don't even remember if we were live. Me and John have been talking for so damn long now. I am praying for the day, and Greg, I hope you hear this. I am praying for the day that Ben Johnson gets a head coaching job, because that guy can call a damn football game.
Yeah.
That guy, holy shit, dude. And it's like the little things that people don't even notice, like the mixing up of the play calls, when to call the double reverse, just pounding it to the left side, throwing it to the right side,
using tight end.
I mean, you having a guy like Amon-Ra, let's be honest, that guy is a stud. Mm-hmm. He absolutely commands all of your attention in the middle of the field. Getting guys like Josh Reynolds to actually be relevant is impressive. But
Greg said he's wrong if he doesn't go to the Bears. Hey, there's something we can agree on, Greg.
I don't want him to go to the Bears either, because that guy is going to be a great head coach. Can you imagine him? Imagine if Staley gets fired. Can you imagine him getting his hands on Herbert, dude?
Oh, maybe that's the job he's waiting for too.
Dude, filthy. That's the first one that popped in my head when I thought about Ben Johnson, dude.
Yeah, I can
get Staley out of there. Staley's, probably a better DC anyways, but get him out of there and put Ben Johnson in that position. That Chargers team will erupt.
That's what Kellen Moore was supposed to do for them, but
but Ben Johnson's real in my opinion. So the running game, not great for our defense.
John, how do they do tackling wise?
Yes,
bad.
Yes, he does.
Bad. I mean, I'm just gonna put it simply, right? Basically team wide, with the exception of Quay Walker. Like Quay, we talked about at the top of the show. Quay looked like he actually wanted to play last night. It wasn't just the fact that he tackled with incredible technique. It was when he arrived, he did so with aggression. Ultimately, though, the Packers are credited, at least per PFF, with 13 missed tackles, which in my opinion is really, really kind of PFF. Yeah. I mean, like going back to the Atlanta game, we were talking about this before the show. I felt like with Atlanta, they had 21 missed tackles. That's also what Matt Schneidman, the Athletic, said. That's what it looked like. And now, watching this game last night, I was like, okay, this one's going to be close. We're going to be at 18 or so. And then no, just 13 missed tackles, which, I mean, you look at who had those missed tackles too. Here's just a quick rundown. Devontae Wyatt, 4 missed tackles. Nixon, 2. And then Quay, Enigbare, McDuffie, Valentine, Savage, Douglas, and Smith all had 1. So the thing is, when you see a spread like that, 1, it's pretty well rampant across anyone who played substantial defensive snaps, had at least 1 missed tackle.
73 plays will do that to you.
True. But at the same time, I know I'm focusing on tackling here, but the thing that I talk about is the easy answer for so many is fix the defense means fire Joe Barry. And I get the gripes with Joe Barry. I understand, because schematically, this was not exactly a defense that was built to win last night. But when you have 13 missed tackles in a game or 21 missed tackles in a game, I don't really care what scheme you're running. They're going to run through you. And
we saw it last week. Last week I counted 2.
Yeah.
And they held the Saints to 10 points.
Yeah, I think even PFF tracked them at 4 last week. So, like, still, like, an exemplary tackling performance against the Saints.
Yeah.
And then this week,
beautiful.
I think, like you were talking about Ben Johnson earlier, what he did a really good job of for the Lions last night was, especially on pass plays, everything was so spread out that the Packers had to at least attempt to make a number of one-on-one tackles. They kind of took away the ability for the Packers defense to just swarm. And when the Packers defense is actually semi-reliable is when they're able to swarm, which is exactly how they were last week against New Orleans. Detroit did a great job of completely taking that away. And it exposed guys like Keyshawn Nixon, who is a very up and down tackler. It exposed others that if you get them in the open field, they're not great at that. So this was, we can call this teaching tape for bad tackling technique.
Put this and the Falcons game together.
Yeah, right. And too many, like, we've been watching it for years with the Packers, like, no matter who's been the coordinator or whatever, too many of these stinking, like, stick out your arm, hope they come down.
Yeah.
With their feet, hope they come down. It's just bad technique. I mean, actually, like, Quay, one of the reasons he was so impressive last night was it felt like so many of those 19 tackles were pure. Like, it was, he stood up the guy in front of him and brought them down.
Put the shoulder on him and wrapped up.
Yeah, it was beautiful tackling technique, which he needs to coach the secondary especially on.
So Greg said he believes that Quay is already a top 10 linebacker in the league. I wanted to say this, and this is what I was waiting for to get to this point. I'm going to go on a limb. I'm going to say Quay Walker is the Packers' best defensive player.
No. It's still Jair.
Okay. And I'm meaning just in 2023. But
okay,
in 2023, this season so far in 4 games, I believe he's our best defensive player.
I'm not sure I can go that far.
I'm gonna say it. He's missed 2. Jair's missed 2 of the first 4 games.
I know that makes it hard. That makes it a really small sample size because Jair was great.
Still
Jair was great in week 1, but week 2 was rough for Jair. And I'm not at all saying that Jair is not a great defensive player. But I don't think Quay Walker is being given enough credit for how big of a step he's taken so far.
I would agree with that. The other player that I'd mention in, like, the best conversation, I think even on 20 snaps a week, we have to acknowledge how impactful Rashawn Gary's 20 snaps have been. I mean, even after last night, he's still on pace for, like, if he does 20 snaps, he's on pace for something stupid like 18.4 sacks is what I read earlier today. Like, it's just insanity at this point. He's doing it on 20 snaps a week.
Yeah, Gary
can't get that kind of impact at this point.
Yeah, I would still say Quay is 3rd best player on the defense. I'm not even going to lie to you.
That's
not even like being disrespectful.
Right.
We just have a lot of talent. We have 8 first-round picks on defense, dude. We're supposed to be having debates like this on defense.
And let me say this too is the thing that people keep coming up to is people saying 8 first-round picks on defense. Gary's on a snap count. Jair Alexander's missed 2 games. Eric Stokes hasn't played the last 12, 13 games.
Yeah.
So that's 3 guys you're missing out of your first round picks that aren't playing right now.
Yeah.
So right now it's 5.
And realistically, like, looking at their secondary, they only ever kept 4 corners on the initial 53. Right. And then they lost Jair.
Yeah.
So already, like, your starting corners, if you want to consider nickel their starting base defense, are playing every single snap, and you're elevating an Innis Gaines or a Corey Ballantyne, guys that the Packers didn't put on the 53 for a reason. Not that they're bad, but they're certainly not, like, exemplary.
I mean, let's be honest. There's levels to this shit, right? So
if
you're not at the 53 level, you're on the practice squad. That's just, it is what it is. That's the world we live in.
Tears down for a reason. Yeah. Getting Stokes back, like, even I think Stokes has gotten a little bit worse of a reputation than his play last year actually dictated.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's gotten to the point where people are now, like, over angsty towards Stokes compared to what he actually did.
I think having a really good rookie season kind of made people, like, raise their expectations a little too high for him.
They just expected him to be a first ballot Hall of Famer after that. It's like, dude, Relax.
He filled in admirably when Jair was hurt, and then people were like, "Well, he should be the next Jair, right?" Like,
Jair wasn't Jair in year 1 or 2.
right. So,
right? That's not how that works.
handful of comments that I want to go through quick. Like Kebbles again said, someone pointed out Wyatt is so focused on trying to move past someone, he's cutting other guys' lanes off and messing up the run defense big time. He ran into, removed Gary in a few plays. That I can't say just from watching that I've noticed that. Like Jake said, we're going to rewatch the game at some point and look for some plays to break down. So I will keep an eye out for that. And I can talk to that maybe next Friday when we do our preview for the Raiders game. Chris asked a question that I was planning on asking is if there's a defensive coordinator we would replace Joe Barry with. And Jake already mentioned one of the only guys that I can think of. Like it's not like there's just this perfect guy out there waiting that's just going to revolutionize everything we're doing and just make us a top 5 defense. Like this is the NFL. Everybody else that you're playing with is professional football players. And I'll easily say that the NFL in American sports is the league with the most parity across the league. It's not even close, in my opinion, that the NFL has the most parity in professional sports. So it's not like there's guys just out there waiting, for a defensive coordinator position to open up for them to pounce on and be like, look at what I can do with this defense. Like it's not, there's not just a Luke Fickell that's waiting at Cincinnati for a Power 5 job to open up. It's not something like that. So Jake mentioning Brandon Staley, that's, off the top of my head without doing any research on it, that's like really the only guy I can think of. And he would have to get fired from his job first too.
Yeah. And if he gets fired from a head coaching job, he's not coming right over. That's going to be off season at the earliest.
Right.
And that's the other thing too, is, I highly, highly doubt, pretty much no matter how it goes, the Packers are going to move on from Joe Barry midseason. It's just not their way.
Yeah. It'll be after the
offseason. And if they did, like if something went terribly wrong, and if they did, it probably is going to be an internal candidate that they just temporarily elevate into the interim role.
Rich Bisaccia.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the defensive background. Yeah. He can be the motivator, but he doesn't have the D background. So I think it's going to wind up being like, could be the new secondary coach, Greg Williams, who they got from Arizona.
Yeah.
Or the other one that I would think would have to be considered by this point would be the outside linebacker coach, Jason Rebrovich, who they picked up from Jacksonville prior to last season.
Yep.
What about Jerry Montgomery?
Excuse me.
I know he's well respected.
He's pretty much the same position that Joe Barry was in when we hired him without the defensive coordinator jobs.
I think if I'm going to elevate someone to D coordinator, I know there's a lot more to it than this, but if I'm going to give someone that elevation, I want to see someone who has turned players into successful individuals in the time that they've been in Green Bay. Jerry Montgomery, I think that's a pretty large discussion as to whether he's fully done that or not. Like the D-line has always been rather subpar. You could make the argument of Kenny Clark, and even then I wonder if he was there first. Like I know they were pretty close to each other. But beyond that, like you've got your first round pick, Devontae Wyatt, who is progressing, but I don't think anyone's going to say that he's a bona fide star yet. You had free agent additions in like Jerron Reed last year, who was capable-ish. So, I haven't seen that like Jerry Montgomery, while being a respected coach, and he probably is a wonderful human, I haven't seen anything to be like, oh yeah, he always turns his dudes into stars. His unit outperforms expectations. I want him in the role.
So you could
I'm going to stick up for him for a sec. TJ Slaton's made some major strides the last couple of years.
Yeah.
He's a damn good run stopper now. He's one of the few guys that plays with an attitude. And Carl Brooks has been pretty damn good in my opinion so far this year.
I'll give you Slaton for sure. And Brooks too, but like it.
I know it's early on Brooks, but Slayton's definitely made some major stuff.
What I'll say is if Jerry Montgomery is a name we want to put a pin in, I would say weeks 5 through 18, he could potentially be auditioning for it if he wants to think of it that way.
Sure.
But yeah, I agree. It's going to be something, if they're going to make that change, it's going to be in the offseason. Because a mid-season change like that, I don't think the defense gets better by removing the coordinator.
Yeah.
I just don't. Like, whatever you want to say about Joe Barry, you look at the season so far, And I've been saying this, that I'm looking at this season as a new season for Joe Barry because he moved from the sideline to the booth. So he's getting an entirely new perspective. So I'm kind of taking it as we're getting a new version of Joe Barry because he's coaching from a different perspective. And if you look at the 4 games we've played here, we have 2 good defensive games and 2 bad defensive games.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, as far as Joe Barry is concerned, we need a larger sample size before we can really say that he is the problem and it's not missed tackles, injuries, bad scheme, whatever it may be. It could be we could get to the end of the season and Atlanta and Detroit could have 2 of the best offenses in the NFL. And we could say it was their offenses just being that good. Like, we don't know, in my opinion, because the sample size is so small at only 4 games.
The only thing that I would say is it's, and I've been a Joe Barry defender, but it is very frustrating when Matt LaFleur gets up there for a press conference and repeatedly has to go, well, we got to do something with our run defense. I know we want to keep the shell on, but what we're doing is not working. And if you look at over the last now multiple years, the amount of times that Matt LaFleur has said that, and then very little actually changes.
Yeah,
Or maybe it changes for like a week. Yeah. His extended quote on that today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do something different. It's insane to do the same thing over and over again, expect different results. You fucking think?
Well, and the thing is, like, he said that repeatedly. Like that.
I know.
That's the thing that's really concerning about the Joe Barry situation right now. And like, I understand people want to give him way more fault than I think he deserves. But the problem is there is no denying, even if you're Joe Barry's biggest fan, that there are consistent cracks. Like, the cracks are always the same thing. And that's not getting plugged. And that is what is very troubling and is realistically holding the Packers back from being a better defense.
You want to hear a gross stat? I found this at halftime, by the way. This is at halftime. Yards per play. Lions 8.2. Packers 0.3. That is disgusting. That is what we were getting from Matt LaFleur and Joe Barry last night. That's what we watched for 45 minutes of our lives.
45 minutes rocket.
Subject of defensive coordinator, Don asked thoughts on Jim Leonhard for defensive coordinator. Honestly, based on what he's done so far, I don't know that he's really interested in the NFL, it feels like.
I don't think he likes the state of Wisconsin right now.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, he had all of his hopes pinned on getting the Wisconsin job.
Yeah.
And then that didn't work out.
And he was like the Wisconsin way.
Right. I mean, like, I think that's why he turned down LaFleur.
Yeah.
And now I don't want to overstate this or add drama to it, but would LaFleur go back to a guy that already turned him down once?
Why not?
I don't see why not.
You know, the thing about Jim Leonhard that I would actually love, and it's because he played for a guy in Rex Ryan, and a guy like Jim Leonhard, not overly athletic, not super big. We all know the story, right? But he has tremendous brain. So I think he would absolutely be a freaking awesome DC for the Packers and at the NFL level. He just understands football. He loves football.
Yeah.
But if you're LaFleur and and like say at the end of this year, the run defense stays the same, blah, 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 right? We're fast forwarding. You have to reach out to Jim Leonhard.
Yeah.
Like you can't like skip over that because he turned you down once. You have to reach out to Jim Leonhard.
You got to reach out. I mean, you got to reach out to a lot more than that.
Right.
The only thing that like I'm thinking is these are very much
not gonna watch our show because you said that, Jake.
No, Greg, stay. It got better in the second.
These are all very, very prideful men, and not that it's a wounded ego thing, but there is probably a certain element of, hey, if I offer you this job again, how do I trust that you're going to be with me for the long haul? When you turn to be down once and you very well might have your eyes elsewhere.
Yeah.
That does have to be a natural part of the hiring conversation that I'm sure LaFleur will be asking himself.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that a call would be made, but there are considerations there since he did turn it down once.
Yeah,
that's fair.
So this is an off-topic question, and then we'll get back to the defense. But Greg asked, Are people in Wisconsin aware of the rabid fan base in the Upper Peninsula? I'll be honest. As far as Wisconsin as a whole goes, I would say no. I would expect there to be a good amount of Packers fans, but I don't know about Badgers or Bucks or Brewers fans because that's a super long drive. I guess I would kind of assume that there maybe be.
So they love all Wisconsin sports.
Aware of the rabid.
I'm assuming if he's commenting from Greg's channel, he's talking about the Packers.
Yeah, that's got to be Packers. I'm thinking, and the UP.
Yeah.
So I do want to say to Greg, tremendously thankful for the super chat. Thank you. Really, really appreciate that. I would say like I've heard of the UP being like diehard Packers, but I can't say I'm super aware of it.
Michigan should just fuck off and give us the UP. Like, what are we doing?
Connected to our state, dude.
Yeah.
It's not even connected to the other half of there.
Decided that anyways.
Yeah, Greg, how do you feel about that? Do you just want to be a part of Wisconsin now?
You know what? I'll concede it because the Lions won last night. I'll go as far as every year when the Packers and Lions play, whoever scores more points gets the UP for the next year.
That's fair. Make it like Paul Bunyan's axe.
Exactly. Right. Make it like a bowl game.
Oh boy.
No, but thank you, Greg. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Greg said just Packers.
Okay.
So it does make sense to me because of the proximity.
Yeah.
Bucks go Bucks.
Okay, so John, back to the defense. We kind of talked about some of these guys a little bit already, but any other thoughts that you have on the D line?
There is one interesting, really, I'd go just two quick personnel notes. One, their usage of Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark was silent last night. Which was rather surprising, especially considering that the Detroit Lions were utilizing their backup right guard. And nonetheless, Kenny Clark was unable to do much of anything against the Lions front. At least according to PFF, he had 1 tackle and 0 pressures all game long in all 50 snaps that he played. But it wasn't for a lack of trying to move him around and find something. I thought his snap count was really interesting. He played 7 snaps in the A gap, 26 in the B gap, 9 on top of the tackle, and 8 snaps outside. Really, really interesting usage spread. More diversified than normal for Clark. I mean, he's always kind of all over, but this is a more even spread than we generally see for Clark. So they were making a concerted effort to find him a spot to wreak havoc. It just didn't work at all. And then the other thing that I would say, they did make an interesting personnel switch in terms of snap counts. Kenny Clark was at 50, TJ Slayton 49, Devontae Wyatt 44 snaps, but then Carl Brooks 31 and Wooden 19. So the 6th round pick outsnapped the 4th round pick by 12 snaps. And I got to believe a large part of that is because Wooden is still gaining weight, still growing into his body frame to be an actual run stopper, whereas Brooks at 300 pounds is already there. And against Detroit, it makes all the sense in the world to play Brooks more. It's nice that they actually did it.
So Tyler, before I get to your question, I want to say people are super mad about, the run defense has been a problem for so long. Look what the Packers did in the draft this year. Their 1st round pick was a outside linebacker, defensive end hybrid. They drafted Carl Brooks, who's a defensive lineman. They drafted Colby Wooden, who's a defensive lineman. They picked up an undrafted free agent, Brenton Cox. They're addressing it. They added basically 4 guys to this and the 2 guys that they added last year to this front. So they're addressing it. It's just going to take some patience. I've talked about it a whole bunch of times. I actually really am a huge Colby Wooden fan because his play diagnosis is there. So, John, I think to your point, I agree with you. It's just the physical part of it because, in my opinion, his brain is already there.
Oh, and there's no doubt, like, he's a disruptor. It's just that's better used right now in terms of pass rush than run stop because, frankly, to be an effective run stopper, he's just got to add some bulk in. I think, like, last time I checked his weight, he was still at like 270-ish pounds, whereas Brooks is at 300. And to line Wooden up directly against a guard or in one of those internal gaps at only 270, it's a tough ask for a 4th round pick.
He's a college size.
Okay. Yeah, and we've seen in previous weeks as they've lined that up that it just hasn't gone that great. Wooden has gotten bullied before.
Yeah.
So it's just a natural consequence of him being a rookie and still growing into form, while Brooks is already kind of there in terms of size.
Wooden has a great swim move, though. I'm just going to point that out. He has a great swim move.
And his spin when he pulls it out is crazy fast.
Man.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Tyler asked, do you guys watch the QB School with JT O'Sullivan? Yes, we are big fans. He does fantastic work if you're looking at judging quarterback play. I haven't watched last night's about Jordan Love yet. Haven't had the chance. I work a full-time job. If I did this full-time like John Money Pockets over there, I would I would have watched it already. I just haven't had a chance to yet. But yes, Matt LaFleur did also talk about that as well, about him just holding the ball a little too long and just needing to take what the defense is giving you is what I was going to talk about when we got to Jordan Love, which we're going to do after the defense. And then Chris said, I told John last week I committed to Wisconsin football and soccer. I do like soccer. I'm not a fan of soccer, but at least you called it soccer and not football. So you got that going for me. He said he was a Buckeye fan. Thank you, Wisconsin, for knocking off UNC basketball a few years ago, Duke fans.
Chris, I just want to say I'm glad you're completing the conversion. Chris came to me a couple days ago, said I root for both Wisconsin and OSU. What do I do? So like you can't coexist like that. You just can't do it. You got to pick and then commit. And he's on the path.
Or just go to games wearing plain red T-shirts, I guess.
Yeah, nobody's really going to question you at those games. You just be the guy that just says yes for every play. Yes, yes, yes.
Just cheering for everybody.
Second for loss. Yes.
Go sports. Yeah.
On the back of the red shirt, it just says positive sports fan. That's it.
Yeah. Ty, I do want to just mention one thing back with Ty's point about JT O'Sullivan. No, even I didn't get to catch JT O'Sullivan's breakdown yet. So sorry, guys.
Slacker.
Yeah. But I will say, like, he's done so well through 3 weeks of hitting the checkdowns. And I would agree last night was out of the norm that he was delayed on so many of them. I don't know. And maybe JT O'Sullivan offered up some rationale to this. Maybe it got to the point where he was starting to see ghosts. Because when quarterbacks get rattled, that's very much a thing. It could have also been a little bit of we're like the old kind of Aaron Rodgers mentality of we're down 17-3. I'm going to try to get 14 on one throw and don't take the check down, get it down the field. Like maybe that was one thing he did learn from Aaron. It's not something I was specifically looking for in a rewatch, and I haven't seen Sullivan yet. So Ty, I know at least like you'll watch Monday's video. I'll try to talk about that on Monday.
Yeah, and if you're interested in checking us out, we'll be doing a preview of the Packers-Raiders game next Friday night, so we can look into that as well. But as far as Jake and I are concerned, we are also big fans of JT O'Sullivan, hopefully future guest of the Wisco Fanatics show.
Yeah, dude, and I said it before, I'll say it again. I learned a lot of football verbiage from that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I come out like way smarter than when I went in watching his shows.
Yeah. And if you have some time to spare and you want to laugh a lot, go watch week 3's Justin Fields video. If anybody thinks Jordan Love isn't the guy, his videos are usually about 30-40 minutes. Justin Fields' week 3 video was an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing.
No.
I watched the first 20 minutes and I was just giggling the whole time.
Yeah. So, David, I see your comment, by the way. Thank you, David. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Jake, what about
the 90 minutes of that?
I watched 90 minutes of that.
You're glutton for punishment, man.
I like that guy. I like that guy. So pass rush. I'm going to keep this real short and sweet. They had 2 sacks for 20 yards, Carl Brooks and Devontae Wyatt. We had 6 quarterback hits, 1 from each of these players. Gary, Brooks, Wooden, Wyatt, Smith, and McDuffie. McDuffie with the best one, in my opinion. And I'm just going to say, pass rush is fine. We got to stop the damn run. We got to win early downs.
Yeah, that was my thing against the Falcons, too. Bill said opportunities abound from this game for sure. The Lions played extremely well, so good props to them. And that's the thing. Like we have some Lions fans like Greg, who was in the comments earlier. Greg is a diehard Lions fan. He said actually to us today that we're one of his favorite podcasts. So that's, we have no problem giving credit where it's due. Like, we've talked about this. Jake and I went through this with the Badgers and Illinois last year. Like, how long did you expect them to be okay with sucking? It's been 30 years since the Lions have won the division.
30.
Like, it wasn't going to be that it never, ever happened. Not to mention, all four of us that do our show on our regular Friday nights, we all picked the Lions to win the division. So we have no delusions that this is not the Lions that went 0-16.
I would just say, like the Lions, part of their roster construction is to beat the Packers. Like, not specifically the Packers, but just in what they do well, matches up incredibly well against the Packers. And that's a natural consequence of different roster constructions.
Yeah, Greg said we're trying to get better. The thing is that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a more recent NFC North championship than the Lions do. Like, it's not something where the Lions were just never going to get better. Like, they're going to eventually, maybe it'll be just a flash in the pan. Maybe this will be their one good year. They'll win it, and then it'll be another 30 years. Maybe. We'll have to wait and see. But to expect them to continue to be okay with having losing seasons, it's just not realistic, especially, like I said before, the NFL is the league with the most parity in American professional sports.
Yep.
Okay.
The only thing I'd say, Tyler, real quick, is like the Lions, they are certainly due. Like, there's no doubt about it. It's time that they have a good stretch.
Yeah.
From the Packers side of things, they're not the Chiefs, they're not the Eagles, they are not yet a full-blown juggernaut. Right. And they do have some deficiencies that the Packers could exploit. Just last night, they didn't at all.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, we as the Packers now, we know we're going through a rebuild, even if it's a soft rebuild or a mini rebuild. Like, we have to go through some adversity. Like, I get that it's been a long time since we've had to, like, take lumps, but for you to grow and be able to appreciate the good days, you have to take some lumps at some point. There's no shortcut to being great. There really isn't.
No, and the thing about being great is you get what you get out what you put in. So the Packers are gonna have to do a lot of work. Obviously, they're young, right? I'm gonna answer Tyler's comment real quick. No, I do not have a soft spot for them. After seeing how some of those Lions fans talk, it makes me want to kick my little brother in the face.
Whoa! I know you're talking about them, but like, damn.
You see how disrespectful some of those people are, man?
Well, yeah, and that's why we don't hear on the same time.
Bruh, y'all need to chill. This is the first time you're 3-1 in how damn long?
I know.
You guys have not won a playoff game since I didn't exist. I'm 31 years old.
Yeah, that's
sad.
That's an act like you've been there situation, and it's clear that the Lions haven't.
And Greg is one of the few Lions fans I absolutely don't have a problem with. Greg's cool shit, man. Greg can give it, Greg can take it, but man, oh man, some of these people talking out of pocket.
Listen, what I'll say about Detroit is it's week 4. Detroit, you have an opportunity to not be Minnesota and Chicago fans. You are in the same division. You know what their rival fans look like. You have an opportunity to be better.
Be better.
Be better than a Minnesota or a Chicago fan.
I will say, like, even last year and this year, when I do like a show that's like a matchup and I've got both teams in the title or something like that, I get more Lions fans randomly popping up on my shows than any other team in the division. And it's not often that they're very kind. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Like, they're quickly getting there. But I don't know, Ty, like, I'm with you, Ty. Like, I've looked at them for years. Okay, my personal take is like the Bears, I'll at least respect the Bears because there's history there. Okay, the Lions, I respect them because they're cute. And that's like, they've been the lovable losers for 30 years. They're experiencing a little bit of success, but they're still adorable. Okay, that's just what it is. And then the Vikings are the most artificial, plastic, manufactured franchise in the history of sports that doesn't deserve anything good. So like the thing, like, you've got the Bears who you can respect, the Lions who you can appreciate with love, and then the Vikings. So I'm with you, Ty. I at least hold a little soft spot for the lovable losers.
I'm okay with the team, right? Same thing with like, this goes for any sport. I don't hate the team. I hate fans of the team. Cowboys fans are horrible. Bears fans are horrible. I don't hate Justin Fields. But you know what? When you're trying to shove it in my face all the time, that you think he's the savior and he's going to win MVP and all this other stuff, and then he sucks, that's what I'm going to point out to you, that you're an idiot for saying that.
That's fair.
And
that's fair.
I don't feel bad for people watching sports. It's a form of entertainment. Did people feel bad for Bucs fans when we won 15 games? You shouldn't have. We got rewarded Giannis Antetokounmpo. And 8 years after that, we won a damn title. We'll be okay. Sports is a form of entertainment. I don't ever feel bad for anybody. I do respect people that stay loyal, though.
There's cycles to it all, too.
Of course.
But what I'll say is, David said I saw Barry Sanders versus the Packers at County Stadium. He was unbelievable. Jake and I have been pretty vocal about actually really loving Justin Fields, the person.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, he's really cool.
Greg said the Lions have been so bad for so long. I have no problems with them. Many of them are Lions fans, and I feel sorry for them.
See?
Yeah, and that's really just the thing. Yes. It's like, if you guys have success, great. You guys have earned it by the team you have. But like I said, act like you've been there, and you have opportunities to be better fans than those we've seen on there. I love Cowboys fans because it makes more Stephen A. trolling. Yeah. I mean, seeing Skip Bayless in shambles is always enjoyable, too.
Who doesn't love Stephen A. in the cowboy hat? And the,
and
the cigar, bro. He goes crazy. That stupid laugh. So obnoxious.
Bill said it's funny how around the NFL, every team is trying to win games to get to the Super Bowl. They're all getting paid, and they've all had a lot of high draft picks for a long time. Regardless of them being due, their coach has some fire, and he's a hard guy. He set expectations, and he's putting his team in place to win and be successful. However, that doesn't mean that it's okay that the Packers didn't win and that they came out and got down as much as half of they were. But this exposed early what our
to be continued.
Yep. And that's the thing. Like you can be okay with how the game ended up last night while still wanting them to be better. Tyler said he didn't like hearing in week 1 that Love and Fields trained in the offseason together. Don't need that guy wearing out on our QB.
It was really cool.
Option plays are.
It was really cool of him to get for Fields to give his tickets up to Love's mom so she can have closer seats. That's the kind of stuff that makes me like him as a person. I mean, the guy played for the Bears at Ohio State. You don't play for two worst franchises. Traded to the Jets,
I'd cheer for him. I'll say that.
Yep, and I hope he does get traded to the Jets. That would be awesome. Because then I could be like, yeah, go Justin Fields. And then I hope he's good so I can laugh at the Bears fans even more.
Bill said, sorry, guys, we'll keep it shorter. Yeah, StreamYard cut your comment off. It was too many words. Chris said, I can still have the courage to say good game to the other team and have the heart to flip them off behind their back.
Chris, I'm almost with you, except I flip them off to their face while I say good game. Good game. I'm hurting right now.
Yeah, that's like Jake and I do that once in a while too, and we're obviously fans of the same team. But like Jake will pick, like when we do our Badgers shows, we pick what we're gonna talk about. Yeah. And Jake will pick something I was gonna pick, and I'll be like, "Good pick, Dick."
Yeah, you bastard. Or like sometimes when we're covering Brewers, like we'll both have the same stat, and Tyler bring it up and be like,
"Yeah."
I was like, I was so ready for that one.
Yeah. Okay, so Bryant's notes on the red zone. He said. Red zone defense was fine, 50%, but when they have 6 trips to the red zone, that's rough. Detroit should have been 2 for 6, but the Quay penalty punched one in. So, yeah, I mean, decent and could have been better, I guess is what I'll say with that. Greg said, I love that Stroud is showing great progress, and the Bears are stuck with Fields. I'll say this, Greg, you'll probably agree with me. I don't know how much college football you watch, but I sincerely hope the Bears don't end up with Michael Penix because I think he's a stud.
Oh, Michael Penix is a monster, dude. He's a UCLA fan, so he watches a lot of Pac-12.
Gotcha. Yeah, Michael Penix is a boss. Greg asked if you guys are ending soon and got something to watch on Netflix, but this is more interesting. Jake has our last defensive topic, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Jordan Love, and then we'll wrap her up.
I'll get right to the point, too, because this is also gross and made me want to puke. So I have 3rd and 4th down defense. Overall, the Lions went 7 of 17 on 3rd down. I didn't add 4th downs in there. They converted 2 4th downs. But just on 3rd down, they were 17. Excuse me. 3rd and 5 and shorter, we allowed them to go 6 for 7. 3rd and 6 and longer, 1 for 10. So
fucking A.
You kind of you understand it. So in those 3rd and 5s, 5 of those 3rd and 5s were 3rd and 3 or shorter. 1 3rd and 3, 2 3rd and 2s, 2 3rd and 1s. Please win on early downs. Unleash the pass rush. It's not rocket science.
Yep.
Easy money.
Yep.
And in those 3rd and 6 and longers, that's when we got our turnover, our interception, and one of our sacks.
Yeah.
Not crazy stuff.
All right. So we mentioned that there was maybe the possibility of Jordan Love kind of getting rattled by the amount of pressure that he was under. I mean, we're talking almost every other play. But Matt LaFleur did give him some credit that gave him some credit for his calm and poise even while being pressured and sacked in the first half. There were several plays where Jordan Love basically is staring down the barrel of the gun, knowing he's about to get hit, and still delivered some throws.
Yeah.
So I do give credit to that. Greg said 45-3 would have meant we gave up. 34-20 means we have heart. And that's what, like I mentioned this right at the beginning of the show, is at halftime, we were down 24-3. I wasn't, it's not that I had given up, but being down 21 points, I realize is a very low percentage of comeback on that. So my thing at halftime was win the second half. And the Packers did that. And Jordan Love was a massive part of it. What I will say is it's hard to, in my opinion, gauge his mechanics when he was under the amount of pressure that he was under. It was hard for me to try to get a beat on what his footwork looked like, his using his eyes, just mechanics in general, and that'll be something I look for when I rewatch the game. But it's hard to see when he's under that much pressure. What I will say is, and this goes kind of in with Matt LaFleur a little bit, I think that his first rushing touchdown, I think that was a designed quarterback draw because he didn't actually really he took the snap, he looked up, kind of just went like this and took off. I don't even think that was like a Jordan Love decision. I think that was a designed play call, and it was beautiful because Jordan Love walked in with nobody within 4 yards of him.
Yep.
Greg mentioned that Aaron had Jennings and Driver in his first year. Yes, he had much
100%.
more wide receiver experience on his team.
Yes.
As far as the interceptions, I put the first one 50-50, 50% on Love, 50% on the amount of pass rush pressure that the Lions were getting. I believe that first play was basically them trying to run just a quick rhythm where it was going to be a 3-step drop. Love was going to rip it, and they were looking to get him an easy completion to try to get him some rhythm. And they caught onto it. The pass got tipped and picked.
Yep.
The second one, I am not mad at Jordan Love's second interception at all. This is one of those things where it's like we're going to have some growing pains because this is a young team. But what I'm excited for is what that play says about the potential of the future of this offense. Because as Jordan Love and Romeo Doubs play together more, that chemistry and that where they can have, one brain, a shared brain, when they're in plays like that, Matt LaFleur did say that Romeo Doubs can't go off schedule while Jordan Love is still in the pocket. So I do agree with that part of it. But as Jordan Love and Romeo Doubs start having, this chemistry, that's going to be a pump fake. And Romeo Doubs is going to know what Jordan Love is thinking, and Jordan Love is going to know what Romeo Doubs is thinking. And then Romeo Doubs is going to go into the end zone, and Jordan Love is going to hit him for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
That play, maybe as soon as the Vegas game, as they get on the same page on these things, that's going to result in a lot of touchdowns from Jordan Love and Romeo Doubs.
And
I'm
that's
not mad at that pick at all.
That's merely just playing together more, playing together, period, playing more.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, and even LaFleur, like you mentioned, said that just happens sometimes. You got one guy who's off schedule, one guy who's trying to maintain schedule. Just straight up unfortunate is what that wound up being. And I don't think there's blame at all to assign on that one. No. It kind of just happened.
Yeah. And like I said, for me, I see what the potential of a play like that can hold when those guys are on the same page.
Yep.
Like that's a touchdown in the future. Yeah. That's a touchdown.
He's going to be wide open. And deep in the other team, in this case, the Lions fans are going to be like, how the hell did he get so wide open? It's just going to be like when we had Devontae and Rodgers, right? Those guys always knew what was going to happen. That's what's going to happen.
I would go a little bit farther back, and I would say Rodgers and Jordy.
Or even Rodgers and Cobb. Cobb made most of his career by being off schedule with Rodgers.
Shit, he was
finding
really
the spot in the zone. I mean, like
James Jones,
got
really good at it.
That was that era, and Love is along with Romeo and Watson when he's back. They're all growing into that next era of knowing when to stay on schedule, or even for the receivers when to read Jordan and know what he's going to do based upon what he's seeing. Because right now they're all just kind of guessing around each other.
Right. They've all played 4 games together.
Yeah.
Christian Watson hasn't even played 4 games with Jordan Love yet. Romeo Doubs has played 4.5 games with Jordan Love. And Luke Musgrave has played 3.5 games with Jordan Love.
Yeah.
Jaden Reed has played 4 games with Jordan Love. Like, this is, as these guys start to play together, and this is the thing. This is what this potential of basically taking your lumps as rookies and second-year players does, is next year, after they've all had a year of playing together and a second training camp together, we could be in a position 365 days from now where it's like Jordan Love threw 6 touchdowns to 6 different players because they couldn't decide who to guard, because Jordan Love has great chemistry with every single pass catcher on his team because they've all grown together over the last year. That's what the potential of this offense holds. But right now, it is just potential. They need to just get the experience, the reps, the playing time, the chemistry.
Yep.
All right. John, do you have anything you want to add on Jordan Love?
No, I really think we pretty much said it all.
Jake, anything you want to add on Jordan Love?
He's fine.
He's fine.
He'll be okay. Literally, that's all that needs to be said, because you just see so many people, and this is not shocking. The least shocking news you're going to hear today is that there's idiots on Facebook, right?
Oh, fuck's sake.
I'm glad that we have all high IQ people in the comment section right now, because I don't know if I'd be able to hold back the mood I'm in if I saw somebody being an idiot right now. But
Jake and I are going to maybe look at doing some bad take Mondays and kind of
just wait. I got some good ones
with factual basis and statistics, but it confirms that there's work to do for us. I'll say that that we have some educating in the in the fan base that we can do, and unfortunately it's not limited to Packers fans, as Jake and I know.
Hey, I saw one guy legit calling for Sean Clifford to start next week.
Bro,
for fuck's sake.
Bro.
And he was defending it to death. Like, this wasn't just trolling. The man was putting out stats to support it and everything. So just
oh my god,
rest easy tonight knowing that those people exist.
You ever just like 100% confirm that somebody is like literally like huffing paint? Like that is like the definition right there. I'm sorry.
That's rich coming from a guy who paints fire trucks.
Yeah, with full face mask on because I still have a brain.
Real quick before we sign off, Tyler asked, what is your opinion on Watson so far in his career? Someone say on Twitter that he's the next Will Fuller, super fast but can't stay healthy and struggles with drops. We knew he struggled with drops when he came in because he was playing in a run-heavy college, but his athleticism offered major upside. As far as not being able to stay healthy, he's had this hamstring injury, but people got to remember that wasn't his only issue last year. He dealt with a concussion for 3 weeks and then got the wind knocked out of him out of the first play in Buffalo. And because they were worried about the concussion, they kept him out of the rest of that game. So he missed essentially 3 of the games last year with a concussion injury, and it's not been the same hamstring injury hit all of the games that he's missed.
And I will not allow anybody to make any fun about concussion injuries with recent history of players absolutely going berserk. We were all alive for Junior Seau just straight up shooting himself in the head. We watched Antonio Brown have a mental health breakdown. Like, there's been a ton of players. Like, Everson Griffin was going nuts. Chandler Jones, I think, is actually having some effects of CTE.
There's something really going on.
I will not. Yeah, it's bad. I will not allow anybody to say anything bad about concussions because we do not know the effects that these players go through with the brain injuries.
They're just starting to understand it.
So we're not going to touch that one. The hamstring thing, though, like we could say stuff about that. The Packers have the worst hamstrings in the NFL. Going back to Clay Matthews.
It's not uncommon either, even historically in the larger context of the NFL, that these guys who are so big, so musculature, and have the speed to match, have a lot of soft tissue injuries. Like, this is not new. And Christian Watson may fall into that category, in which case, like maybe he's going to have something nagging here or there every year. But the return is for 12 games, for 13 games, you have this baby Calvin Johnson who's running around instead. And it's a trade-off like most teams are going to take. In terms of the exact like Will Fuller comp, Christian Watson is already superior in two huge ways. Like, yes, Watson overall struggles with drops, but he seems to do better in contested catches than he even does when he's wide open. It's really weird. So like
I'm that James Jones syndrome.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I hadn't thought of that. It's a perfect comp. Like,
bro, I used to hate that.
He catches better when he's covered than when he's wide open. Plus, the other thing is he is a far better run blocker than Will Fuller ever was.
That's 100% already.
So I think like you already have a guy who's played in what, like 12 and a half career games at this point for Christian Watson, who's already a more complete receiver than Will Fuller, and certainly has a higher ceiling than Fuller ever presented, because Watson can do that other stuff. Maybe he's going to have soft tissue stuff. Like maybe it's going to be frustrating every single freaking year because that's his body makeup.
Yeah.
But the reward is the upside is
lanky dude who's got 4.3 speed. I mean, that's tough to maintain.
That's a lot on the body. Like there's been a lot of dudes who have that makeup who then struggle with pulled things or just tweaked things like all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's what we're going to deal with Watson. But the upside is
tires on the sports car often.
Yeah, right. But you get 12 games a year of that. And they're going to take that trade every year.
I'll take 12 games of 6
3-game stretch of 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'll take that.
We may just have to learn to live with it.
Yeah. Greg said, thank you guys for that concussion stance. As you watch Jake and I, you'll learn that we have a zero tolerance for talking shit about injuries. Zero tolerance. Whether it's
for our teams or away
teams.
Love it.
We will not. No. If you're going to cheer for somebody on the other team to get injured, or when they do get injured, there's a zero tolerance for that. Outside of the fact that that's just a person that you're talking about being injured. And it's the same thing with David Bakhtiari. We defended him all last season, and we will continue to do so because he's a person. But outside of that, especially when it comes to opponents, we want them to be at their best because we want them to beat them at their best. Yeah. We don't want the injury excuse of, oh, you only beat us because this player was injured. I don't want that. I want to beat the teams when they are at their best. So just from a competitive standpoint, on top of it being, human beings, that we have at Wisco Fanatics, we have a zero tolerance for talking shit about injuries.
Yeah, we don't do that shit.
Yeah. Tyler said you guys are awesome. Thanks for a great show. We appreciate it.
Thank you for the super chat, Tyler. Thank you.
Yeah. And John, we appreciate you bringing some of your followers over from Lombardi Time Brews, and hopefully we can get you some over from us from Wisco Fanatics, and we can kind of cross stream. But I'm sure there will be more collaborations with us, and maybe we can have you stand in for Simon on another show in the future. And
definitely.
Other than that, I will see you guys later, and Jake and I will be back early next week.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Later. Take care. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.